So guys, thank you for spending some time to share all your knowledge, your expertise in the area of live streaming. Firstly, do you want to introduce yourself, Gaz? Who are you and what do you do?
Hey everyone, I'm Gaz. I'm the creative director here at Coventry Elim. So look after worship and production teams and everything's streaming as well with Oscar. So it's great to be with you today.
Fantastic. And Oscar, who are you, my friend?
Hello everyone. Yeah, my name is Oscar Mucyo, and I am currently just taking on the full-time role of digital director here at Coventry Elim, and just look after the whole online stream look of what we look like online. So help with the team that runs cameras, runs all the back-end stuff that makes that happen. And yeah, so that's my full-time role. Really exciting.
Brilliant. How exciting. And you guys, I've been following your journey for a while and you've learned a lot of lessons on the way. And this session is all to help people in their live stream journey. Some are starting out, some are further ahead, but you've got lots of wisdom to give to us. Now, just before we kind of jump into the little practicalities, Gaz and Oscar, there are lots of considerations, aren't there, for a live stream? And in terms of what kit we get. For example, we look at internet connections. Do you have a strong internet connection or are you just relying on 4G? It's not just cameras we're looking at, it's the sound quality. What's that look like? The lighting, is that good? And do we need to improve it? The room setup and space, how can we use the cameras in the space? What are you looking to film? Are you just looking to film the pastor, the worship team or other elements? What's your budget like? What look and feel of the broadcast do you want? And what team available do you have? There's lots of considerations there as we look to create our live stream, but you want to focus on 4 areas, don't you? So just tell us more about those areas before we look to get any kit at all for our live stream in the church building. So yeah, go for it, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. I think, yeah, like you said, there's a lot of things to consider when you're talking about live streaming. There's so many options, there's so much, and you can only it's almost like a minefield of things that you can think about. But I think one of the first things to think about is what look and feel do you want to have for your live stream? What do you want your live stream to look like? Do you want it to feel dynamic? Do you want when, for example, during worship, do you want to see movement in your shots? Do you want to see do you want to capture the room? Do you want to capture people worshiping when we have people in the buildings, that is? Or do you want to have just one camera facing one way and that's it, and just really smooth pans and moves? And basically asking yourself the question of what inspires you, what makes you, if you were watching it, how would you feel? How did that make you feel? Having what you're choosing to do, how would that make you feel? If you're watching it in your lounge, if you're watching it in a coffee shop, wherever you are, if you watched your live stream, how would that make you feel? So asking yourself that question is a really important thing. I think that was really helpful for us in the beginning, looking at lots of church live streams across the world, trying to be inspired by what we see and what brings us joy, what we like to see, and then obviously marrying that with how much you can afford budget-wise. So it's really important, again, to think about how much you can spend, but then as much as possible come close to what you want it to look and feel, how your church culture is, which I guess Gaz can go on to talk about.
Yeah, brilliant. So what does church culture mean? Talk about live stream, Gaz.
Yeah, I think it's really important that we consider the fact that, we're churches. Our primary calling is ministry. It's not broadcasting. Broadcasting fits into that, but we're not a TV studio. We are a ministry. And so looking at your church culture is absolutely vital when it comes to considering what equipment to buy. Because, for example, your church at the minute, many of us don't have people in church, but when we do, you have to consider how it will feel having cameras around. Where would you place them? Is it going to be uncomfortable for your congregation if you've suddenly got 3 tripods blocking their view, or a jib, or a big track flying across the stage? Is that going to hinder your in-person ministry, or are you going to need to kind of journey through that with your congregation? And if that's the case, are you willing to go on that journey, or is actually that something that doesn't fit into your church culture? Because those inform the choices you make. There are plenty of camera options which can be almost invisible to the room, and that may well be a better option for environments where the broadcast is going to actually interfere with what they're trying to do in person. Or you might be a church that's like quite open to having cameras around, in which case that gives you some different options, and it would be okay to have someone running on stage with the camera, or down the aisles or whatever. But it's really important to have that conversation before you spend any money, or else you could end up buying a piece of gear which is fantastic now when your church is empty, but when you've got 200 people in, or however many people in, it suddenly becomes something that has to be pushed into the background because it doesn't fit your culture.
That's fascinating stuff. And sustainability, what does that mean in light of purchase considerations for our live stream?
Yeah, sustainability is a massive one. I think we've found that the challenge, as many other churches have, since COVID hit, of the fact that suddenly we've got a whole load of new roles, which we need new volunteers for, and they need new skills and need to be trained. And so sustainability is a huge topic right now. The more handheld cameras you add, the more camera ops you need. And obviously that's like a really important role, and an easy one to get wrong sometimes. You cut to a stage camera and it's pointing to the ceiling and it's not giving the best look. So sustainability is asking yourself the question, how many people realistically are we going to be able to put to this? Like I say, there's so many different options. You can have cameras on the wall that are completely unmanned and need no person. You set and forget them. But you need to ask those questions before you buy, because they inform the choices. You might be able to spare like 10 people right now, but when you're up to full strength again and running multiple services or whatever, what will your team look like? And hopefully we're all like looking for growth, but it's working out like at what pace you can grow, right?
It's really
definitely. Yes. And I was thinking as well, sustainability also comes in place of thinking like right now. I think one of the things that we talked about that was talked about at the beginning of the pandemic was, are you going? Is this a sprint or is this a marathon? Are you, how long are you going to sustain this in terms of your team? Can it carry it? But also, are you thinking to do live streaming for a long period of time, or are you thinking to do it as a fix just for the pandemic? And so that will inform decisions around what equipment do you get, how much are you willing to put in. If you wanna invest in it for a long period of time, then you can put in some strategy in terms of, we want to grow to a place of broadcasting big time. So we'll start here and then we'll start to grow it. But yeah, if you're just doing it for 3-6 months, then that obviously affects how much you're going to invest in.
Guys, that's amazing. That's some great headline considerations, because there are so many options out there, but we want to make the right choices with the budget we have. So that's really important. And Gaz, you put together, before we delve into the intricacies of kind of the kit out there, you put together this really helpful table for us. Do you want to just kind of talk us briefly through it, and then we'll delve into the details in a second?
Yeah, sure. So it's just like a few budget options, really, that maybe will help you explore avenues for your own live stream. So we've got like a low budget option, a mid budget, and then a high budget. Obviously, this is just like some headlines, some bullet points. There are other options out there, but I think the principles that you might find in this table will help you to kind of shape the system that fits your budget best.
Fantastic, that's great. And I say all these slides are going to be on elim.org.uk/digital. So when you're coming to, okay, what kit are we going to get, do check out these slides, because they're really important. So, okay, I am a church. I don't have, a lot of kind of budget for live stream, but yeah, I want to do live streaming. Here are some kind of basic, perhaps low-cost setup options for live streaming. Do you guys want to talk me through it?
Yeah. Obviously there is, when you talk about live streaming, there's two parts to it. There is what you see and there's what you hear. So there's the camera side of things, and then there's the audio, the video side of things, and the audio. I guess that's for everything, even not only live streaming. But in this setup, we're talking like you could use your phone, just your iPhone or your Android phone, just to stream straight to social media or YouTube. I would say like streaming to Facebook is probably the most straightforward, easiest path, using your phone. And basically all you'd have to do is get a phone, which you already have in hand, get a tripod just to stabilize your shot, and then get some good lighting. So there's lots of good options out there that are affordable, budget friendly, that you can get on Amazon, like the ring lights there you can see in the pictures. And that will just get you a really nice picture. Actually, some of the phones we have these days are quite comparable in terms of picture quality and image quality to some DSLRs that you see on the market. So yeah, just using your phone and a ring light and stabilizing it somehow. And you can even have like two phones, and then you start to take it from there, building it up. But just one phone, bringing it really close to the subject, and then you're away to Facebook.
And I guess the amazing thing is that you can use 4G, can't you? You don't need, because some churches, the reality is just might not be able to get a good internet connection there at the moment. But 4G, it's all possible, right? And Gaz, like, I see something called iRig on there. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so iRig's just a really simple way that you can port your audio from your pre-existing system, like your front of house mixer, into your iPhone, so it's a cleaner signal. So you can take like a headphone out or out of your mixing desk, and it can go straight into that, or it can be phono out, and then you can mix on headphones the sound that people will then hear on the stream. It just makes for a cleaner signal. It means you don't pick up like movements of people who are maybe walking around the camera. Obviously, you've got much cleaner feed on the mic and stuff like that. And you're able to monitor that much more effectively as well. You hear what they hear. And that's a key element for broadcast audio. If you can find a way to hear what the people at home hear, that's going to help you no end, rather than just relying on your front of house mix, where you may have your PA, which people don't usually have on their phones or in their car or wherever they're listening or watching from. So yeah, I just want to jump in on what Oscar said about lighting as well, because I think we can't emphasize enough just how much of a difference the environment that you're trying to shoot and film makes. If I had a blank hall, like with nothing in it and a budget, I would probably spend, Oscar may well agree or disagree, I'd probably spend 75% of that budget on the room and the rest on the gear that I need. Because
that's quite interesting, because we do think that kit will perhaps do all the job. We just got to focus on the kit. But you're saying the room is really important, and things like lighting and all that, yeah? Yeah,
first rule of photography is stand in front of something interesting. Yeah, you don't take a good picture of something unless you're looking at something interesting, right? So you've got to make your environment worth shooting, and so that's why like good lighting, which helps make like everything vibrant, or even just lighting that helps take the strain off of your camera. Oscar's totally right. The phones that we have nowadays, the camera is like top quality, and if you can get the light to remove the strain off the sensor, then you'll find that it may well give you an actual better output than if you've spent money on a DSLR, but it's still a dimly lit room.
I think it's absolutely brilliant, because that's a really important consideration. So you might be a church leader or media tech team. Okay, so I can perhaps use my phone, lighting and sound to get in there. But we've mentioned a bit about the software or where we can stream to YouTube Live or Facebook or something like that. But I know I'm part of Rediscovered Church. We use StreamYard a lot, where essentially you can have 10 people joining in from their phones, broadcasting from their phones, and you can mix it like a bit of an online vision mixer, and it's really clever. And StreamYard only costs about £30 or £40 a month or something. It's not very expensive, comparable to what you can get from it anyway. But that's a great way of vision mixing. OBS, do you guys have any experience of OBS, or how potentially we can use that for kind of low cost vision mixing and all that may entail?
Yeah, we used OBS for a while. Yeah, and it's a similar thing. OBS or another good software for Macs is Ecamm Live, and they work in a similar way in that you can put a number of inputs in. You just need to have a capture card that can cope with that, and then you're able to switch between those inputs within the software, which obviously negates the need for an independent vision mixer, which is usually quite an expensive piece of gear. So they're definitely good options. Yeah, if you want to take that low budget option into like a multicam thing, then that's probably the cheapest way to do it, is to look at a software that can handle fewer options.
Brilliant. And with OBS, Oscar.
Sorry, it's probably worth also mentioning if you wanted to go live streaming to Facebook or YouTube, Facebook is probably the most straightforward that you live stream to as a personal account sort of thing. It's really easy. Whereas on YouTube, you'd have to like go through a few hoops, set up a YouTube account, set up the live streaming element of it, and then OBS will then work with YouTube. You get a stream key, and then you can put it straight through the system. Again, if you want more details, we can give that. But I would say Facebook is probably like basic, like the most easiest entry level you can get into, just for streaming platform wise.
That's brilliant. So as a headline thing, if we have a look at this, so these things, perhaps we have these tools already, or certainly we can source them for whatever, but certainly OBS is free, StreamYard is not crazy expensive, and Switcher Studio is actually for Apple, for iPhones, but essentially it's a vision mixer. But some really good tools there for a basic low cost setup, but still really good for us. So let's go back to our grid. So, okay, we've gone through a little bit, explored about low budget, iPhones directing to Facebook, YouTube Live, etc. But now we are going on to our mid-budget options. So, should we have a look at our chart, and you can guide us through the options here. So, some really interesting options here. If I've got a bit more money to spend on live streaming kit.
Yeah. I mean, with the audio, if I just take you through some of the audio, a great step up from your first option, which is just taking the feed out of your desk. So whatever you hear in the room, you hear on the stream. A great step up from that is to be able to mix independently to the room. And that obviously helps you future-proof your setup as well, because there'll come a day where you'll need to mix both environments. And so what we've put on this one is like some sort of digital mixer, which has the option to mix on what we call an aux send. It's like what you use if you're a musician for monitors. So they have the monitor feeds, and that allows you to give the musicians a different mix to the front of house mix. And what we'd recommend is using one of those aux sends to send to the stream, so that gives you like independent control of the levels. What it usually won't do is give you independent control of EQs or compressions or gains. That's something that we'd look at in higher budget, but it does give you at least the option to mix like the levels separately. And if you can take that feed, send it, a lot of mixing desks will allow you to connect using an iPad and mix one of the auxes from an iPad. So you could set up a set of speakers in a side room of your church and sit there with an iPad so that you're totally isolated from the room, and you can mix as if somebody is watching from their living room. You can check it on your phone, and that'll give you a real step up in the quality of your audio, because you're mixing in an isolated environment and you're able to have independent control of the levels, and then somebody else can be behind the same console mixing for your in-person service. And so that's a great step.
That sounds really, that's brilliant. To upgrade the sound, is so important, isn't it? And looking at that visual side of things, there's some interesting bit of kit here that I might not be too familiar with. And kind of looking at the top left with the red button and white buttons, tell me about that. How does it all work?
Yeah, so that little piece of gadget there is a Blackmagic 8 Mini Pro, and it's basically a switching device. What it gives you the power to do is to capture from different cameras or from different devices, put them straight into it. It's got HDMI inputs, which you can see HDMI cables there, and you can take an HDMI signal out of these devices, be it a camera or a computer, straight into this device. And then this device is really good because it goes straight. You don't even need to set up like OBS or anything in between. It will go straight to Facebook or YouTube or whatever. So it's a really, really helpful little device that's got so much capability. So one application that I would have in the middle range, if you're thinking about this, would be taking a couple of cameras, maybe DSLR cameras like in that picture, or camcorders, or even a PTZ camera like that one, HDMI out into this ATEM Mini, and then if you wanted to get your lyrics on top of the video image, then you get a computer with Pro Presenter, take a HDMI cable out of it into this little device, and then you have your video combined with lyrics very easily, and then you can switch on that little device. And it's such an important tool for this sort of level of budget.
And guys, we're going to talk about the kind of different range of cameras in a moment, but a lot of churches are considering these PTZs, or do I go for a different camera, handheld camera, etc., etc. What would you say are the kind of, because there are so many different options out there, what would you say are the kind of the pros of either, or what one would you recommend? Any thoughts on that? Because it's quite a minefield, isn't it, really?
Yeah. So if you go ahead, guys.
All right. you go.
So if you're thinking, so DSLR would be just like a camera that you can be able to take really good image quality pictures, but it also can have lots of depth of field. You can control what you focus on in the foreground, in the background, and it's a bit more versatile in terms of choice of creativity on your image. You get there's a range of them. You get full frame ones that have really good sensors that will capture anything in low light or bright light, and then you get some that are not so good that way. But I would say the advantage of having a DSLR is you get so much more creativity shots and so much more versatility on what you can select. Whereas if you're using a PTZ, you're going to have it fixed in one place. And if you're looking for that look that is just fixed in one place, you get really smooth zooms, smooth pans, left and right. You can tilt really easily, and then you don't have somebody manning it like physically. So that's a PTZ for you. And then if you're talking camcorders, which is another option, there you have a compact little camera that's got all the different connectivity that you need. But then you don't need to interchange lenses, which is a thing that DSLR has. If you're going to buy a DSLR, you've got to buy the body and then the lenses, and there's more considerations with that.
Yeah. Another thing with the PTZs is, if you get one of the ones which is like high resolution, you'll find that you are able to get multiple angles out the same camera, and some of them you can even set up like memory points, so you can have a wide shot. You can have like cropped in super close to a worship leader, but then also cropped in super close to like a pastor on a lectern. So they are versatile in that way, but the image just tends to be like a flatter image, like less dynamic range and less depth of field, like more like everything in focus. So it just depends, like back to what we said at the start, what kind of look you want. That's more of a traditional broadcast approach, like tends to be flat and in focus, whereas DSLRs tend to be a little bit more MTV, if you know what I mean, like soft depth of field.
The MTV shot, I love it. No, honestly, that is so helpful, because as I say, there's lots of options out there, and it's working out what best. Looking at the other ones here, you mentioned earlier about getting some lighting, and recommend actually what is your room, how to improve the lighting in your room, and also I was seeing on here about cables. Like, here's a question for you: in terms of the cables that you get, if you go on Amazon or go to any retailer, you get all sorts of different options, don't you? Do you go for the cheapest, or do you go for the highest? Because you get all sorts of ranges. What would you recommend?
What do you think, mate?
We've tried a few. We've tried a few where it's like cheaper, and I would say it's very hit and miss. And I think a lot of the time, actually, some of the things that you get on Amazon will last maybe just a little while. I think better to, especially with cabling, I think invest a bit more. Just think about a bit more. And we have some recommendations of people where we get cables like SDI cables, or if you wanted a made-up network cable that you don't want to make the cable yourself, or XLR cables, there are some recommendations of places you can get it where it's made and you know you're going to have it for a long time.
Because the last thing you want is to buy cables every couple of months, don't you? Or even less.
Yeah, and also the last thing you want is to just buy a fancy new camera and have its quality capped because you've plugged it into a cheap cable.
Yeah.
So it is definitely a cost to consider when you come back to like initially buying, because your system is only as strong as its weakest link, right? So if you've got all the cameras in the world but they're dodgy connections and adapters and whatever, it's not going to be as reliable as it could be. So it's definitely important. Yeah.
That's so helpful. So helpful. Looking at the other items here, we've got a basic comm system. So if we said, based on what you were saying, perhaps we have a live stream setup of 2 or 3 cameras and 1 vision mixer who is using that ATEM. You would say there wants to be a communication between them all, and a very simple way is something like walkie-talkies, or lots of different systems out there, isn't there, Gaz?
Yeah, there's loads. I mean, comms is one of those, it's one of those backstage purchases where people won't really maybe even think of it, or certainly members of our congregations may not even know that it's a necessity. But you quickly find, the second you've got cameras which have the ability to move, you quickly find that it's essential for the person who's mixing your broadcast feed to be able to tell them what to be pointing at, or even problem solve, like if a camera's not in focus and they can't tell on the little screen, you don't want to be texting or sending someone to run down and say the camera's not working. And walkie-talkies is a really cheap way. You can even use like a WhatsApp voice call with headphones. That's a super free way. We've used that before, and it's like just a way to make sure that people can hear information on the spot without sending someone down. Your camera is in focus, or I need you to move to the left, or your battery's about to run out, whatever it might be. It is really important.
And those little technical emergencies do come up, don't they? Sometimes.
They do, yeah. Every single week, probably.
Yeah.
Just looking at a couple of items on here, thought I'd give a mention, just to have had a bit of experience with the Mevo camera there. A Mevo camera is a really good camera. It costs about £300 to £400. But essentially, it's kind of multi-shot in the sense, from an app on your phone, you can say to the Mevo camera, okay, look at the worship leader. Another shot, look at the bassist. Look at the drummer. It's about £300 or £400, and lots of big brands use it. But it's just one device. Of course, it's not like a DSLR or anything like that, or PTZ or something. But it produces a really good higher quality image from for a good reasonable cost, and you get a bit of a multi kind of setup there. And just a word on kind of Pro Presenter and lyrics. You have kind of touched on it really. I might have this camera set up, and I want the guys at home to sing along. Am I really, is it worth it spending it on a really good bit of software? I mean, there is Pro Presenter, but there's also various out there. What's your kind of views on that?
Yeah, I think we've used Pro Presenter for I can't even remember when we got it, but it's been a massive help, and just not only for for live streaming things or for lyrics on a video screen, just even for the room. I think it's a very intuitive piece of software where any of our volunteers, we've had to sometimes we've picked someone out of the congregation and said, are you free now? Because we don't have someone to run the lyrics.
Be recruited.
You're officially recruited, and they'll come and they'll run it. And like, that's how easy it is. And that's a massive help, just having a software that somebody can get on. You can give them a 10-minute walkthrough and they're ready to run the service. So ProPresenter is really good, highly recommended. And so, but yeah, speaking about lyrics on a live stream, I think it's super important. It's really hard to know right now if people are really engaging in worship. But I think we want to help them as much as we can. We want to help them, engage and sing along. And so, and people have been used to having lyrics on screens when they're in the room, and so it's almost really important to carry that on and have the lyrics on their screens as well. We want to try and reduce distractions as much as possible, and if people are singing a new song, we want the people to engage and to learn the songs and stuff. Yeah.
That's so helpful. That is, really, like, I mean, we talk about the A10, kind of different camera ideas, which we'll go into a bit more in a bit, but digital desk, lighting, and ProPresenter. vMix is a software that is quite expensive, but they are doing some kind of church packages at the moment, which is like a vision mixing sort of program, and it's really good. It's really top marks. But do contact them because is a little bit pricey, but is definitely a worthwhile spend there in an area. So guys, we've done.
You might also want to throw into that budget range as well, that there are softwares out there like Restream or Caster, which allow you to take your stream and multiply it to numerous locations. So if you want to be present on YouTube and Facebook, you can stream using the proxy of like Restream, and it will send them to both ways. There's also a number of features which help you to do that reliably. So those are worth considering as well. They're all subscription based, so it's like a rolling cost, but might be something to consider if you want to be in two places at once.
That's brilliant. That's so useful, because get as many eyeballs on the live stream as you can, which is brilliant. So, but we've gone from very basic, from using our iPhones to lights and basics and stuff. We've gone to the middle range, where a bit more. We're looking at different cameras. We're looking at the lighting. We're looking at ProPresenter, and we're doing quite well. We've got perhaps one or two cameras, and it's going right. And we're like, do you know what? We can resource this a bit more. We see it's a real ministry for our church and out there. We can look a bit perhaps of a higher budget, if you want to call it. Should we have a look at our graph, because it's always a helpful kind of way to have a look at it. So we've gone from low, basic kit there, to mid, and we're going to high. So this is exciting. This is an exciting area when you've got lots of kit out there and there's so much to consider. Guys, this is kind of a mixture of different things here. Do you want to kind of talk us about this? What's on our screen? And indeed an investment for the future, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I'll go for audio again, and then Oscar can pick us up on video. So the main difference for audio in this higher budget is that we move to a completely independent audio setup, which allows you to mix with total control. So like probably one of the more common ways to do this is to use like a network audio infrastructure like Dante or Madi, which allows you to split your channels so that they go to your front of house mixer, but they also go to another room where you can mix on another console. So you'd have two mixing desks, or you use a DAW like Pro Tools or Logic and mix, and that obviously allows for plugins and just like real in-depth control to create the best sound that you can create. Full flexibility and full control. So yeah, that's a big game changer for audio if you have the option to do that. So either a totally separate mixing desk, or like a software-based DAW, which allows you to mix just for the stream.
That's amazing. Gaz, a question for you. Like, in terms of the sound quality of the live stream, has it always been perfect? Like,
No.
Tell me about that kind of process, really, because sound is a process to work out what is working. How have you journeyed through that? I mean, do you review your live streams on a regular basis?
Oh yeah. Me and Oscar will usually review like quickly on a Sunday afternoon. A few things, and then we'll always talk on a Monday morning about like learnings and what we want to nail the next week. Yeah, for us, this to be totally honest, us this year has been like one huge learning curve for us, and from back in March the 22nd to going live with initially pre-recorded services and then moving in July to like live streaming, it has been a massive journey, and it hasn't always gone well at all, and there's been huge like things to learn along the way, but I think our approach has definitely been that we'll try and nail a couple of things every single week. So you can't fix everything all at once, can you? But I think that like progress is more important than success, right? So you want to focus just on progress, and if you can find the next like few things that you can tackle, and if you just keep doing that, then as time goes by, before you realize you actually have arrived at a place that seems miles away from where you started. But it's easy to look at stuff and get totally overwhelmed and think, wow, how do you even get to that level or whatever? Whereas if you can just target just a few things, like, so for example, we do things like spend a week where we target drums, right? Like we need to get some more energy and life into the drum sound. So we get a drummer in, we'll work on the drum sound, like a few hours that week. We'll work on it at rehearsals when we were able to have rehearsals. We'll work on it, and then we'll do it at the stream, and we'll review it. So yeah, it's just been a sort of targeting, trying to find the high impact things to tweak and target, but definitely hasn't been like a super smooth journey. It's just been like knocking away at it week on.
That's so encouraging, because this is a whole new venture for so many, and actually, do you know what, is just each time learning, reviewing. That's a key part. Doing it and reviewing it, and then you build on the top, which is amazing wisdom there. Looking back to this slide, I mean, there are some other items that I just don't know what they are. So explain to us, what do they do, and why is it an investment in the future for our live stream?
Yeah, that's a good question, Jason. So looking at this, we also, when it comes to cameras, I think the next level would be broadcast cameras or cinema cameras, which, again, most of the time they're modular. So you will buy a body, and then you add on a lens, and then you start to build your sort of broadcast module or something. And so one of the best cameras for this is the Blackmagic Design Pocket Cinema, which you see there. It's a really it's not very expensive. It's about maybe £1,600 for the 4K one, but then you now have to consider about the lens and stuff. But it's got great image quality. But what this does is it combines your DSLR sort of image quality with the ability to get an SDI connection straight out of the camera, which is broadcast standard connection. It's not HDMI. It's broadcast standard. And then the other thing is, you get to control color a bit more. It's already built in with some really good color options. And here again, it talks about look and feel. Do you want to have like sort of a film feel, like a cinema feel, where it's more like smooth shots, more colored, like, when you start talking about LUTs and things and trying to make your broadcast look really different from anyone else, just stand out a bit. So that's where this is like really high end, where you can control and be more creative with your shots. That's when we talk about these cameras. And then we've got a Blackmagic 8 production studio there.
So is that the item at the bottom? Is it that one? The
bottom left corner. That's the switcher that actually we're currently using at the moment. It's got Gaz, you can correct me, is it 20 inputs and 20 outputs?
I think it's 20,
yeah. And then it's got two MEs, which is basically two control centers for you can have two people switch on this particular independently, and they can do different switches for different rooms or for different casts. So yeah, that's again, if you wanted to have this where you have more cameras, you have more inputs, you have more outputs, you have more controllers, this is a really good piece of kit to have. And then in the middle there, between the camera and the comms, is a Ray encoder. It's made by a company called Resi. They used to be called Living as One. They're a Christian company, and they've like really sprung onto the scene in terms of encoding video. So what they do is they encode video. You basically send them your stream. They send you this little device. You get it. You keep it at your place. We've got one here, and we basically go straight out of the streaming hardware, that switcher, straight into that little box, and then the signal goes online to their servers, and we start streaming about 2 minutes ahead of time. And what this gives us is a buffer of time where if anything happened, the stream won't break. It's just a really good peace of mind thing, where even if we unplug the cable, the stream will keep going. It's been such a huge help for us, and you can schedule the stream on time, and you can plan it ahead of time and just not touch it and not think about it, and it will do it automatically. So yeah, this is again just leveling up your streaming ability.
That's amazing. And Gaz, I saw top right of that picture about the whole comms thing. I didn't see any walkie-talkies, or I saw that like more of a functional kind of comm system. That's kind of a next step up, right, for a camera team.
Yeah, and there's so many different options, but having something that's like a full two-way system is great, with some really good headsets. To be honest, like headsets probably make as much a difference as the comm system itself. You often find, especially for camera ops, the environment is quite noisy, and so like if you've got like some dual muff headsets that block out the noise so that they don't have to have it really loud. If they're on stage next to a drum kit, they can hear without having it super loud. And you get systems that are called like a whisper system. So when you talk back, you don't need to shout. Obviously, that's not ideal in a church. Somebody's preaching and you've got somebody shouting down a microphone trying to get somebody to hear them. It doesn't really work. So it's like with everything, the more you spend, the better that you get. These kind of systems like really help your communications, and they can really help build community amongst your teams as well. So it's great here on a Sunday to be able to just talk to the teams that are often in another room, to pray together, to like encourage them as we start our service, to remind each other that what we're doing here is a ministry, and what we really want to happen, what success looks like, is not a really good TV show. It's that God would move through the stream and meet people in their homes and wherever they're watching from. And so we found like even just having good communication just helps keep everybody encouraged and on point and focused on the right things, and not getting lost in the whole broadcast world, but keeping, you know what I mean, keeping our values strong in every area of the church. So yeah, it's really useful to be able to talk to each other in that way, in a way like that's comfortable as well. And we're like running the service, it's obviously essential you're able to cue things in, so the person upstairs can say cue video, or we can have a service producer that's just talking everyone through, keeping everybody on point. Okay, they're on the last song, we're about to transition to the host now, or whatever it is. So yeah, definitely helps slicken things up for sure.
And like this question, you could spend hours and hours talking about, but in terms of what you communicate to your camera team, like in Coventry, you kind of have different terms for different camera shots, don't you? So, you don't necessarily have to explain, okay, I'm looking for this. You can just say, okay, I'm looking for this shot. Can you do it? Tell me about, just give us a nutshell, how you've trained up your team and also developed those shots, really.
Gaz maybe will jump in a bit as well. We've we've not had a lot of the people actually on the team don't have lots of experience with cameras, but it's been like I've said to you, sometimes we've actually picked someone straight out of the congregation and said, do you have time? Do you want to?
Time.
That's not a great model, but I'll just say that sometimes that's what it is, and somebody who's willing and who has a heart to do it, and they end up on the camera team. And so yeah, I think it's been really helpful for us to like learn each other, like you're saying, have comms, be able to talk to one another, and sometimes people will get a shot and it will look really good, and maybe as a director you missed that shot. It's really helpful to say to them, listen, do that shot again, I missed it, and they'll go back and get it, and then we'll name that shot. For example, we'll say that's a push shot, or that's a whip shot, like moving. And these are some industrial names in the industry, in the broadcasting industry, that already exists, like whipping. So if you want to aim to a certain thing, but before you get to it, whip to it, and then we catch that in movement, and that's a really valid shot for us. Again, it comes back to what do we choose? Like, we want to see a lot of movement, a lot of dynamic movement with the music. Like, if the music is picking up, we want to keep it going. So we are constantly talking to the cameraman. We're saying more energy, the band is taking more energy now, we're going to raise it up, we're going to go faster, keep moving, dynamics. And it's almost like, yeah, just the comms is so invaluable for this. It's like so good to have just a really good comm system.
I love it. That's honestly, that's so useful. And just to kind of, before we delve into having a look at some cameras, which might be worth a consideration in light of what we just discussed, anything kind of other items that you want to kind of say on here, or does that kind of pretty much sum up what you've shared with us?
Yeah, that sounds great, Jason. I just wanted to just follow on off what Oscar was saying there, because he makes a really good point of the kind of the relationship, I guess, between like your broadcast team and your team that's serving in the room. Because like what we're trying to achieve is like you're trying to take church into people's homes, right? Or wherever that they're watching from. And so like how it feels in the room and how it feels when you're standing there and worshiping, or when you're listening to a talk, or when you're responding to an appeal, like we've got to, as people that like run these kind of ministries, we've got to really get into how it feels to be in that moment, and how you transport that into an environment which you have no control over. Someone might be watching in a noisy house, or they might be watching while they're doing like the lunch or the ironing or whatever. And the more things that you can do to help like create the church environment in their home environment, the better. And that's why I think stuff like camera angles and audio is so important. Like one of the things that helps really draw people into worship is if the band sounds really good. And we often, like many of us, like we sit in church and have the privilege of like listening and being drawn into worship by some great musicians. And so, you know, we want to make sure that those great musicians sound great, whether someone's listening on a phone or on a TV or on a laptop or in the building with your PA. And it's the same with the cameras. You want it to sound and feel like it does in the building. So I think we'd really encourage people to consider like the online congregation as well as like the in-person congregation. It's not like a lesser congregation. They're just at a different location, but we can still impact the way, the environment that they have when they're engaging with church. And that's a crucial conversation to have, definitely.
And you guys, it sounds like from what you're saying that actually, you know, churches and camera team can experiment. They can be creative. A camera does not need to stand on a tripod, sit on a tripod, but you can have lots of interesting angles, right? And see what they look like. But that's okay to try out, right?
Yeah, definitely. And it's almost like what we were saying, like if you are in the room, you would be looking at all these different things. You'd be looking at the guitarist, you'd be looking at the drummer, based on what you sort of are interested in or what your eye lands on. So we want to give people that sort of experience where, you know, I'm looking at the worship leader, and then one moment I'm looking at the drummer, one moment I'm looking at this other perspective. So you're almost giving people a feel like they're in the room, or they're stood right next to the drummer, they're stood right next to the guitarist. And and again, teams just encouraging guys to be really free with how they shoot. There've been people who have come and like really done some really cool things. And we said, oh, that is great. And where did you learn that? It's like, no, I just experimented. I just tried it. And, you know, and that's a shot that we'll take on board and use in our library. And it will sort of like help us moving forward and be consistent with.
That's so useful. Guys, that was a great overall. And let's just go back to our grid before we look at those, you know, DSLRs, camcorders, all the sort of kit. You know, there are lots of considerations, you know, like, but I think breaking it down into this, you know, kind of the low, what can you get running up quite quickly with, you know, perhaps minimal tech really, to the mid where you're developing these different cameras, thinking perhaps more strategically about sound and your communications, then high budget, looking at that separate mixing desk, upgraded switcher, two-way comms, you know, that is really helpful to actually, you know, work out a plan. But guys, I mean, okay, so I want to get better. I want to get, get some kit. I want to have a look at cameras. What cameras do I choose? Because there's a lot out there. And what, tell me about the different ranges. Starting off with camcorders, really. Where do I start?
So yeah, camcorders. There will be there's loads of options, but I think there's a few that stand out really and are good for budget. So there's the Canon G50, which is just a really good compact camcorder. You can see it costs about 800 £800, and I mean, the good thing with these is everything is in one place. You've got your HDMI cable coming in. You don't need to change the lenses. You can zoom on the camera itself with one button. You can move in, get some really smooth zooms. So yeah, this is a great option, like a great starting point for a camcorder. If you wanted to go a little bit higher, Canon XA40. It's a 4K camera. It's got a 4K sensor. The advantage with this one over the other one is you can get 2 XLR audio inputs, so you can get your audio coming out of the desk straight into the camera. So if you just wanted to get your audio straight out of the camera, just a stereo audio straight out of the desk, into the camera, you can do that on this one. And then the XA45, which is a step higher. This one is a 4K camcorder, and it's got 3G SDI out, so it's got an SDI cable out. The others are all HDMI, but the difference with this one is you get an SDI broadcast cable straight out of it.
Wow, that is a good range of camcorders there.
Yeah.
And I guess for many churches, a camcorder is very familiar territory, right? But how we've already touched on it briefly. DSLRs are smaller and lighter, perhaps more easily movable.
Yeah, I would say that they're smaller, more easy to move. If you wanted, just to get more dynamic handheld shots, they're usually much better with autofocus. So this is like a really, really helpful. And they've got like most of them have inbuilt stabilization. So it's really easy. Like if you're moving around loads, it will sort of stabilize, the body will stabilize. And then if you wanted to add like a gimbal on top of it, again, DSLRs are really good because you can put a gimbal on it and it will hold really nicely. Gimbal is one of those devices that will just stabilize the shot even more. But yeah, and then obviously you get much better image quality, much better depth of field and choice of creative shots.
And just, on a word here, before we have a look at these DSLRs, we see a lot online about 4K, like, 4K cameras and all that sort of thing. We generally, from most of us, if not all, don't broadcast in 4K because, the output just not like that. So is that something we should be chasing in terms of the kit we get, or is it something we should hold back off? What's your views on that?
Gaz, do you have any?
I think you got to look at the user end, because we don't create a stream to watch it ourselves and go, oh, that looks good, doesn't it? We create a stream to share with people. And so I think the first question to ask is, what is the most common device that people watch it on? And it's usually like a tablet or a phone or a laptop. And how do they watch it? Well, they usually stream it via YouTube or Facebook. Now, Facebook caps all their streams at 720, and I don't think many people are streaming at 4K on YouTube. And so you got to ask, where's that resolution ending up? Because it's getting downscaled somewhere. If you have the infrastructure and the internet connection to send a 4K stream out to Facebook, they're still going to end up watching it in 720p. So you will probably retain some detail for streaming at that level. But I think that, like, thinking about the vibe, like the look and the colors and the way an image feels, counts for a lot more than resolution. You can get lost in the resolution game of 4K. I mean, 4K is even low res to some people now. So, like, where does it end? And yet we watch, you watch videos or something that's produced, and if it's done right and done well, it still looks good in 480. Let alone 4K. And so I think it's a great experiment, actually, to look at your capture and go onto the YouTube settings and see how it looks. And it's a really good indicator. If you can click 360 or 480 and it still looks and feels good and vibrant, then you're probably doing a good job of capturing the feel of your room online, because resolution, it obviously adds detail and crispness and sharpness, but it isn't everything. It's maybe not like the game changer that sometimes people think it is. And you can throw a lot of money at that 4K dream only to get it kicked into touch by Facebook.
That's honestly, that's so helpful, because there is so much jargon out there, and of course, like, these products want them to be bought, so they will do these simple. So that's really helpful to be realistic in terms of that. What's out there. Oscar, we had to look at camcorders just then, and perhaps more familiar territory, but DSLR cameras, there's so many out there as well, isn't there? But you've picked up some kind of highlights that you think are kind of good options for churches.
Yeah. We've experimented with, so the ones that we currently use is a Sony A7 III, and it's a really good all-round camera. This camera just is about 3 years old at the moment. Came out 2018, about then. And it really shook up the market in terms of putting really high grade, almost broadcast level, cinema level image quality into a DSLR, and it just really shook up the market. And it's still, up to this moment, still worth the money that it costs. And really good camera, really good for images, not just video, but really good for taking images as well. So we use it for our video news, all of our midweek capture, and also for our live streams. And it's got inbuilt stabilization as well. It's really good for autofocus. When you have those, when you want to focus on the speaker or somebody who is right in the middle of stage, it's really quick at grabbing a face and just really focusing really quickly. So it's a really good option for DSLR.
I love it. That's really useful. But there are other ones like this. I've just this one you're saying is a recommended one as well.
Yeah. The Gh5 is really highly recommended as well, for the same reasons. It is an all-round camera. It's good for video and for image capture. But again, really good. It's got all the features that you'll ever need. It's got autofocus. It's got just really good color science. It's not a full frame sensor though, like the A7 is. But that is not a huge thing, for streaming. I don't think that's a big consideration. But this is a really good level DSLR, and it's massively recommended. I think, Jason, you have a Gh5.
Yeah, and it's great. Yeah, and we really like DSLRs because they are so movable, and great. And we're looking, okay, how can we upgrade our cameras as well? So it's from that movability, it's so easy to move it around.
And then there's a Canon R5, which this one came out. Oh, sorry, the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema. This is a really good one as well. 4K camera. Really affordable price. I think this is for the quality that you get out of this camera. You get SDI and HDMI as well. It's a really good, cinema sort of creative shot camera. But the caveat on this is it's only video, so you won't be able to do. If you wanted to just get a camera that's gonna do both, this one wouldn't be the one. But it's a really, really highly recommended cinema camera in a DSLR.
I love it. How about this one there, Canon? It's a make we all know.
So yeah, this is a Canon EOS R5. This came out this year, I think. Actually, it's still quite expensive, I think, because it just came out. But again, it's a really good DSLR camera. But one of the things that it's been controversial for is it's overheating. So if you are capturing to SD cards in 4K or even 1080p, sometimes it will overheat around 25 minutes or 30 minutes. But I think they've just changed that. They've just upgraded it, the firmware, to make it better. But this camera is a really, really good contender among the DSLRs. It is for people who are in the Canon world. The reason why I put Sonys and Canon For people in the Canon world, this is probably one of the best that you can use for streaming, because the lenses don't really, like Canon lenses, the mounts are different from the mounts on Sony lenses. For if you're going down the Canon route, this is a really good option for DSLR.
That's amazing. That's really helpful. And as we come up to our final few minutes, we're looking at that high end, that broadcast cinema camera. Churches might be exploring that, an investment for their live stream. Do you want to just talk us through some of the options that are out there and the different cameras?
Yeah, so when it comes to broadcast cameras, like I said earlier, they're sort of, they will get your DSLR look, they will give you great image quality, but the thing with them is you're getting the broadcast quality, you're getting high-end quality imagery, and you're getting also you've got built-in like NDI filters for photographers. This is really important. Like you're able to filter colors, you're able to get much more control on your color looks. If you want to control really how you look, you can fine tune it really well. Now this Blackmagic here is, you're able to almost like you can control the color from away from the camera, just from an SDI cable. Somebody who's in the control room can control things like color, can control focus, can control all the different bits on the camera using a switcher, a special bit of gear that you get from Blackmagic. But yeah, this is like broadcast level camera, really highly like accessorizable, if you like. You can put in broadcast lenses and build it almost to a rig that is like TV level.
Wowzers, I love it. I'll tell you what, these are getting more fancier looking by the minute. I mean, they're really
yeah. The EOS 100, the one that comes after this, the EOS 200 is the latest of them. But yeah, these again are all broadcast cinema cameras. Just wanted to put in a few ranges that for people who are looking at Blackmagic or looking at Canon, because the lens that you choose, the choice of lenses that you choose to use will also influence what camera you get, and vice versa. So yeah, if you're looking at a Canon, this is your sort of area. Again, really high end sort of price wise, but again, very good broadcast cameras.
And the final one here, it's not a cheap camera.
Yeah, this is not a cheap one, but again, this is like a broadcast camera, and it's got, one of the things with this one is it's built-in, like I said earlier, NDI filters, and a lot of Canon people, I've seen lots of reviews about this. A lot of Canon people just rave about this camera. It's really good. It's compact, really light, and just again, you can build it out into a full broadcast rig.
That's amazing. That is absolutely amazing. But if anyone watching this and thinking, "Gosh, I don't have that many right now," we've really gone from budget from your phone to a little bit more up, and there's camcorders and DSLRs. Hopefully, they're more in a price range for many. I think it's fair to say. And then you're looking at the more broadcast cinema cameras, which is next scale really. We could talk about cameras for hours, and there is so much to say. But I guess two things really. Firstly, if people have any questions, because unfortunately our time is up, if they have any questions and they would love to ask you guys about it, are you happy for people to contact you and to ask you questions?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we're here. We're here. Yeah, that's no problem at all.
Fantastic. And so Oscar at elim-commentary.org.uk, and then Gaz at elim-commentary.org.uk. And final minute, really, I guess a 30-second sum up from you guys for people who are looking to venture into live streaming or they're looking to improve. What would your encouragements be? Because it's, it can be a little bit of a scary world, or in some ways a little bit of an isolated world. You might be the only tech person in your church. What would your encouragements be as people perhaps have taken loads of notes and wondering, okay, what is the next step? Gaz, from you, what would be your encouragement be?
Yeah, I think my encouragement would be, like with anything that's to do with tech or production, the easiest thing to do is to feel like your next level is dependent on your budget. or it's dependent on the gear that you have. So you can easily look at another stream or whatever and think that's better because they've got better gear and we can't get better gear. I just encourage you to throw that thought away, because in my experience, often, even with whatever gear you're working with, there's always a next level. There's always an improvement to find. And sometimes it requires no money whatsoever. You can just look on Instagram and see some of the photos people take with their phone, or some of the even people making like movies just shot on their iPhones, and the quality is amazing. So like that thought to do with like budget and restrictions and stuff like that will always hold you back. Just throw it out and think like, what is the next step in my environment? Even a great exercise is to think, what's the next step? If I could spend no money, how do I eke every bit of quality out of the setup that we have? And that's a really great exercise to help you take your streams to the next level without spending any money. And people will love you if you don't spend any money.
I love that. And it is, be creative, you know, try out different angles and yeah, be bold and have fun at the same time. Oscar, how about you, from an encouragement for anyone watching?
Yeah, I think I wouldn't add very much like to what Gaza said, but I think it's really intimidating when you look at, you know, all the different options that you have. When you look at what other churches are doing, it's really like sometimes I spend my Sunday afternoon looking at churches and looking at what streams. You know, the first few weeks of lockdown, we're looking at churches everywhere, attending like 5 services a day. But and it can be a bit intimidating. But I think, again, like, look at what your heart is. Who are you as a community? What defines you? What's your identity? What's your heart? What do you want to reach? What's your vision? What's your mission? What are the people around you? Like, just communicating that and finding a way to communicate that digitally is the best thing. Like, just creating your sort of identity online. And like, I think it's really easy to like almost try and copy other people, be really intimidated by it. But again, it's almost like, even like human beings, just picking your identity and being strong in it.
I love it. Guys, thank you so much. You've been so helpful. And honestly, we've been on a whole journey of cameras, but we've taken so much. So don't forget, all the sites, elim.org.uk/digital. Check them out there, and do get in touch with these guys if you have any questions. They're exceptional. So thank you, guys.